The money man.
Chancellor.
He's very important.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Choi San.
Choi San.
Yeah,
Choi.
how we call it in Cantonese.
Yes.
Choi is the money.
Yeah.
Sun is like the god.
Yeah.
Yeah. The money god.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just have to be you understand.
Yeah, I know.
You for now you stop talking because everything goes back to Beijing, and I will give you a sign, and then you start.
Yeah.
Start talking. Okay. We'll go from the parade first, and
Yeah.
then come back to you.
Great.
Okay.
I give you the money. 俾我袋最細咁解。You can bring all them in for petrol and gas. I really love
Put up to me and tell how they work to do all these figures. I mean, like the big band and everything inside it.
Yeah, they
It's delicate.
there's
And I think it is from rice paper. I don't know why.
well, it's one that
These ones definitely not rice paper.
Fabric paper.
Too delicate for weather like this.
that's the
Look
main.
at the big one.
Oh my god. That's the nasty one.
That's the parade of feeling. You see, there's a lot of things lined up and they are coming to start one after another.
Tall center.
Must be some very important people's main sponsor.
Oh, the sponsor.
I got a feeling it's that hot.
Here in London's Trafalgar Square, the final preparations are just being put in place for the annual Spring Festival Parade. And this is the first event taking place for the annual Spring Festival Parade. 10 o'clock in the morning here in London. Very beautiful day. The crowds are out, made up of Londoners, Chinese visitors, and visiting Chinese. This year promises to be one of the largest parades that's been held for Spring Festival. Each year it seems to get bigger. And this year the Spring Festival and the area that's been dedicated in the city to celebrating the Spring Festival has grown. It's now taken over Trafalgar Square for a couple of days. Later on there'll be dancing, mime troupes, some theatre, singing and performances. The parade will go past this corner here, the northeast corner of the square, and wind its way through some of London's streets, famous streets, such as Shaftesbury Avenue, which is the home of the London Theatre District, as the parade, led by a very large dragon, makes its way to the Chinatown district.
And what's her name?
What's your name? Thank you.
There are several floats here this year.
Very much.
Floats have been an annual feature of the event, but these are very special floats this year. They are present from the People's Republic of China, and they're specifically to celebrate cultural and economic significance of the ties between the UK and China. They're formally celebrating the China-UK Golden Era relationship, this so-called Golden Era named by the British government as a Golden Era of economic and cultural ties between China and Britain. There are 7 floats in all, beautifully crafted. The first one contains a large facsimile of the Big Ben Tower, together with the Great Wall of China. And as you'll see when it goes past, several very beautiful dragons.
Get mine.
This annual event is the largest celebration of Spring Festival in the whole of Europe. And according to organisers, elements of this event, such as the number of dancers and the size of the procession, are the largest of any Spring Festival celebration outside of Asia. London's Chinese community has been in place for more than 100 years, but has grown very rapidly in the past 20 or 30 years, particularly in the last 10 years, as more mainlanders have come to London to study, work, and to settle down. It's become a very popular event in the annual London calendar. It's also the largest event held on the streets of London. The procession is just about to start. The area given over in the centre of London to celebrating Spring Festival this year is the largest so far. It covers an area of about a square kilometre. Most of that area has been sealed off to traffic and will be given over to the celebrations and to the very large crowds that gather here. London's Chinatown, which has been established since the Second World War, so it's been around for about 70 years, is centred north of here. The area has very narrow streets and becomes extremely crowded during the Spring Festival period, when people from all over London come here to the center to get a taste of Chinese culture.
Well, yeah, but someone will certainly do that.
The parade contains a selection of dragon troops and lion dancers. And in the Chinatown area, where there are many Chinese businesses, the lion troops will perform the traditional good luck ceremony of visiting shops to bring them prosperity in the coming year. The event is organized each year by the London Chinatown China Association, which began these events in a very small scale back in the late 1970s. But now it's grown to be London's largest street festival.
Oh, they started like a week before the Chinese New Year. It lasted for like another 2 weeks. Oh, that parade thing, similar. Well, put it this way.
Celebrations this year will be taking place all over London.
The TV program was like
Not far from here, on the banks of the River Thames,
they started like 4 hours before
the London Eye,
and finished like an hour after it.
a cartwheel made up of viewing chambers that rotates, giving a brilliant view of the city, will be presenting a spectacular light show to celebrate the Year of the Dog. And bordering here in Trafalgar Square, Britain's National Gallery will be hosting a special family day. London's mayor has welcomed this year's event. He said earlier that Chinese New Year is always a joyous time in the city's cultural calendar. And here we go. The procession sets off. London's annual Spring Festival celebration procession is underway. Speaking to organisers earlier, they said they believe that this is the largest celebration of Chinese New Year, certainly in Europe. And in terms of participation in the procession, it's quite probably the largest outside Asia. The route of the procession will cover about 1.5 kilometers as the dragons, and there are several of them, wend their way through London streets to finish in about 1.75 hours from now in the Chinatown district. London is not alone in the UK in celebrating Spring Festival. Other major cities like Liverpool, Manchester, Bristol and Newcastle all holding their own celebrations centered around culture, food, and musical performances. In Liverpool, which is the oldest Chinatown in Europe, having been founded in the 1860s, celebrations extend over 3 days. In front of us now is the lead dragon, but this is only one of about 7 or 8 different dragons. And there are also many lions. Coming up now is the first of the 7 floats that are a gift from the People's Republic of China, celebrating the China-Britain golden era of cultural and economic relations. Here on this first float we have the Great Wall of China, Big Ben, and Westminster Abbey. These types of floats are a feature of this parade, and they appear every year. But these are the most ornate and intricate that Londoners have seen in the history of the procession. London's Trafalgar Square, with this very large statue topped by Admiral Nelson, is the traditional celebration centre of the city. It lies just at the top of the government district. Procession has paused for a moment while several old-fashioned London buses packed with VIPs and celebrities join the procession. The weather here in London can be variable for this movable festival. This year, it's been blessed with clear blue skies and very bright sun. Temperatures are about 4 to 6 degrees centigrade. There are about 200,000 Chinese people who live permanently in the UK. But ties between China and the UK have strengthened noticeably, particularly in very recent years. This is both economic and cultural. British universities, which have a good international reputation, have recently woken up to the fact that there are many students in China who would want to have an education from a developed country. In previous years, decades ago, The number of Chinese students studying in Britain was fewer than 100. Only a few months ago, I was talking to one of those early students who came here in the early 1980s, who's now a professor at a British university. And he said there were so few students that they were all met individually by a representative from the embassy. That wouldn't be possible now. Chinese student numbers at British universities are into the hundreds of thousands. In the background, beyond the pandas that you're looking at now, you can see the stage. In about an hour's time, this will be the venue for songs and dances, all celebrating Chinese culture and the Spring Festival. With me now, I have a Chinese family who live here in London. Could I ask you what your names are?
Geraldine.
Balthasar.
Ophelia.
Ophelia, how old are you?
4.
Have you seen this procession before?
Yeah.
Oh, last year?
When I was a baby.
When you were a baby? Oh, you would have been small and young, but you can remember? That's great. What do you think of this year's procession?
It's very good. The lion, dragons, and the boats and fish, everything is fantastic.
You've seen processions in previous years. How does this year's procession compare with previous ones?
I think this year has been very successful. I mean, lots of people come and enjoy the day, and everything is very beautiful.
China and the UK are getting a little bit closer, and this procession seems to reflect some of that. Have you seen any of that whilst living in Britain?
Well, definitely, because I definitely got more colleagues from China these days. I think they actually came over to study and then stay on. And then it's actually bringing the culture into UK as well, because previously I think it's dominated by Hong Kong Chinese people. Now we've got the variety, and I have to say, like, different parts of Chinese people do things slightly differently, and it's actually quite nice to bring the culture over.
I've seen this procession in previous years, and it seems bigger to me than it did in the past. Have you got that impression too?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's actually just a variety, and they can showcase more. Rather than like previous years, maybe they just need to actually find the people who's got the right skills, and it's difficult to actually do something they wanted to do. So definitely, I think it's improving, and it's actually like lots of people, I think, tourists, British people, and everybody who actually come to work in London actually is they are very, very aware of like, oh, Chinese New Year is coming, we want to be part of it, and actually want to celebrate together.
That's true. People now seem to know perhaps even what year it is in a way that they didn't beforehand. People do know it's Year of the Dog. I don't know if you've noticed that too.
Yes, definitely, yeah. And I think even like my daughter's nursery, they have actually Chinese New Year as one of the theme. And I'm pretty sure if you ask the kids in that nursery, they will all know it's a Year of the Dog. Yeah.
Well, let's just turn to Ophelia for a quick... Ophelia, could you wish people Happy New Year?
Yeah.
How would you say it?
I don't know.
恭喜恭喜發財恭喜發財
Gong Hei Fat Choi.
Thank you very much, Ophelia. Oh, joke.
How do you like the Chinese culture and the Spring Festival? Anything you want to say? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello.
Now, have you been to see a Spring Festival procession here in London before?
We haven't, no. This is our very first time. We're so glad that we came. The weather's wonderful and it's really, really amazing. A lot bigger than we thought it would be.
Have Have you travelled far to get here today?
No, just from southeast London, but we've brought our kids with us. We thought that they'd really enjoy it, and it's perfect. We're looking forward to going to the family stage later this afternoon.
Oh, right, what's on at the family stage?
They've got some different activities for children, I think explaining Chinese New Year for the younger audiences, so we're looking forward to it.
How old is your child?
So he is 1, and we also have another son who is 3.
And you're all here?
Yes, we're all here today.
I travelled in on probably a similar train to you from southeast London. I was surprised how many people were on the train. I think quite a lot of people were coming here to see the procession like you. How did you find out about it?
Well, we've lived in London for quite a few years, so we've always known that it's been happening. But usually, sometimes the weather was not so good, or it starts quite early on a Sunday. But we thought this year, sun's shining, so let's come out and make an effort and see. And it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Do you know much about Chinese culture? Have you been exposed to it before?
No, not a lot. We don't know very much, so we're hoping to learn a lot more today about Chinese culture and why they celebrate New Year at a different time to when we do in the UK.
What part of the procession do you think you like the most?
I think our kids definitely like the dragons the best. I think they were the highlight.
It's quite difficult to choose. There are so many dragons.
Yeah, I think the golden dragons, the shiny ones, seem to catch my little one's eye.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
So the procession has passed and is now going to wend its way from here, Trafalgar Square, to the Chinatown area. If you were to walk that distance directly, it's just a 5-minute walk. But the procession will take a circuitous route through London streets. And it'll be another hour and 3/4 before it arrives in the Chinatown area. Although London's Chinatown is not the largest Chinatown in Britain, nor the oldest, it is one of the busiest. And at this time of the year, for previous spring festivals, the streets have been packed so much that it's been difficult to walk along them. This year's Spring Festival celebrations in London are probably the largest yet. They've expanded from the Chinatown area. They're built around this premier event of the procession. But as you can see and have seen here in Trafalgar Square, the entire square has been taken over to celebrate events marking Spring Festival. The square is bedecked with red lanterns and a performance stage has been set up. Performances will start in about an hour's time. Over the past few years, the Spring Festival event has grown in significance for Londoners. It has for many years been the biggest event that takes place on London streets. But now it's become an event that draws in tens of thousands of visitors from all across London. Londoners, Chinese people, Londoners with Chinese heritage, and visitors. And so, Year of the Dog has been celebrated here in London.